Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. Welcome. My name is Katie Gideon. I will be the on-camera facilitator for week three, August weekly setup. And I absolutely have to acknowledge that I'm dialing in from Edinburgh, Scotland, so it's afternoon here. So that is why we had maybe the slightly aggressive, like rock song. But I am also fully aware that you all are early in the morning, so that may have been hopefully it woke you up a little bit. But at the same time, I loved the little orca telling you to kind of take a breath. So I feel like it was all the thoughts and feelings and emotions all in one little brief introduction. But welcome. We are glad that you're here. I want to give a huge shout out to my co-facilitator in the chat, who you will see, Bailey. And we enjoy doing weekly setups together. We probably spend way too much time during the prep talking about everything but it's always fun. It's always exciting. We are glad to be working on week three. I am coming off vacation, so I might be a little bit rusty, but I am happy to be here, happy to jump into our theme. I am already seeing some of our returning socialers. It is so wonderful to see all of you in the chat because it is a wonderful kind of group check-in. You guys are the best accountability buddies that I know I have. But if we have anybody new, or if this is your first weekend setup, or your first setup in general, or maybe your first social event, or first social event in a while, we are also glad that you're here. But just to double check, because you can participate in as much or as little of the social as you want. So just double check that your chat is set to everyone. That will come to the entire Sonder fam in the chat. If it defaults to hosts and panelists, which it probably will at some point, that comes to just myself and Bailey. And we are always happy to answer questions there, especially if maybe you don't want to share there. But just keep that in mind as you go back and forth. And that goes with the same thing. Please participate in as much or as little, because a lot of times this kind of becomes a little bit of a priority of what you want to work on, because maybe you're here and you want to work absolutely just on your journal. So you've set aside that time for you. Maybe there are times where you're like, I've already done my journal, but I just wanted to kind of wake up and start my day. So you're kind of flitting around your kitchen and all those things, getting stuff done. So just here to listen to the music and maybe my ramblings. But keep that in mind. You can mute me, you can mute the music. If you need us to go back to slides, let us know. Get those screen grabs ready to go, all those things. Or if you just want to kind of close the chat and kind of spend that time with you, there is no right or wrong way to participate in these socials. And as always, not at all, Amanda. I am definitely that person with the vibe, running around doing all the things. So as always, remember, be kind and courteous to yourself and others. No promotions or spam. Respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. Limit repetitive product and accessory questions. And as always, redirect customer care inquiries to our team, hello@silkandsonder.com. And as always, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you are responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So if you've had a great week, a great month, a great day, if you woke up on the right side of the bed, we want you to celebrate that. But at the same time, if you're having just a bit of a rough go, if everything is just getting a bit hard, we also want to provide support and all those kind of thoughts and extra strength. As you navigate those, we welcome everybody as they are. But just keep that in mind. If you kind of want to talk about something, by all means do so. But if you just need to kind of tuck it away, come to it at a different time, we also support that. And then now we're moving into week three of our theme of enchantments. I love this theme. I am a sucker for it. I love everything kind of about it, because I also love that we've done a lot of work in the themes in the past couple months. And I feel like this is a good little like palette cleanser. It's a little bit lighter, it's a little bit fluffier, and it's a way that we can kind of move into it. But really, where I started focusing on, to me, enchantment is that absolute direct connection between your heart and your mind. To me, that is where enchantment lives. And so I was trying to kind of challenge myself to figure out a way to kind of incorporate that mind, heart, body connection. So bringing in the body connection. And so that first song, I thought of it because the chorus starts with kind of heartbeat like a drum. And the last song I play will have something similar to that. So it was more of the thinking of enchantment being a two-way street as well. You know, you can be enchanted by someone, or you can be enchanting to someone. I'm in my romantasy and like romance novel era. And I feel like the always description of when you first introduce two characters that you know are going to be love interests, they start with the butterflies and the, breath caught in your throat or the like heartbeat starts racing. So to me, I feel like that was an excellent body, heart, mind connection when it came to enchantment. So I came across these with enchanting is this silence as it turns my heart into a songbird. And same thing with change is scary, but it's also beautiful. Those butterflies in your stomach are reminding you that you're going in the right direction. And then anything that gets your heart racing is probably worth doing. So I wanted to kind of acknowledge that idea of being aware of what things kind of get this idea of like, that moment of awe when you step out and see a landscape or a museum or a kind of monument or historical place that you've always been wanting to go. My mom and I just got back from a trip to London and we went to Wimbledon for the first time, which again seems really small. But to like walk out on like in the arena where center court is, I just had that moment of you like feel a catch. And I feel like to me, that is when like enchantment meets the kind of body concept. But I also think it's a great way to kind of zoom back into yourself and kind of figure out those moments where your breath gets caught in your throat, where your heart starts to race a little bit more. Even with the same thing of like a playlist, is there a song that gets you kind of up and moving, a piece of work, or even going to the movie theater and you get those sweeping like landscape shots where you're just you hold your breath for that moment. So I want us to focus a little bit on those feelings. Embrace the butterflies in your stomach. Embrace the heart rate, not to the point of medical emergency, but just those little acknowledges. And then just like that moment of, I don't know, that just like pause before you either acknowledge or decide or embrace it. Because to me, that is just a magical moment of feeling alive or seeing all those things. So I want us to kind of, I challenge you to maybe focus on that this week because I think you find more of those moments than you realize. So with that being said, we've got our enchantment mind map coming up, and then we're going to do our rosebud thorn reflection, and then moving into those weekly setup pages for week 3 of August, which is whew, bonkers to me that we're already like almost through August. So it's definitely one of those things. It's fun and exciting, and we're glad that you're here. So for the mind map, these are weekly mind maps that we do at the weekly setups. And so we provide a different prompt or a different idea each month, each week to dive into the month's theme. And I did have to play a little bit of a catch up because, like I said, I was on vacation. So we provide the previous weeks. So you can absolutely jump right in with those weeks, or if you want to play catch up, you can. But definitely turn to your mind map. If you haven't set up your mind map, find a blank page somewhere or a blank section and we can focus on week 3. And so, this idea of embracing enchantment through these different ideas, different reflections, and to kind of help dive a little bit deeper, but also kind of map the enchantment in your world, or at least give you ideas to see. Or what I find is an acknowledgement of the things that make your day to day life magical, whether they're the big, lofty things or just the day to day quiet moments. So with week 1, we focused on the time of day when the world feels enchanted. And then we moved into things that spark awe and delight. And what I also love about this mind map is you can kind of carry all of those pieces together through this mind map, or you can again look at them as separate things. Because for week 3, we're going to focus on the places that hold magic. So, as maybe a way to start this exercise is to close your eyes and think of spaces near or far that shift your energy or make you feel more alive or peaceful. Or, as I said, tied into that feeling of your breath getting caught in your throat or feeling the butterflies or the racing of your heart. Is it a walking path, a garden, room in your home, someplace you've visited? And maybe it's that magic time when the light hits it just right, or to go see it in that perfect light. Is it a bookstore, a destination that kind of linger in your soul? And then what makes these places sacred or spellbinding to you? So this is where I said you can kind of incorporate all 3. Maybe it's that time of day to go see the specific monument monument or the specific location with a specific thing that you like. So maybe it's the picnic on top of a cliff right before, the sun sets. You get that kind of magical, like building a full scene for yourself. But then, as always, I have included the first part of the question in the first two sections. And other things to kind of maybe bring into this, or another way to approach it, is definitely tap into your five senses to describe the place. I feel like this calls for it, the theme calls for it. How does it feel? How does it smell? How does it look? All those magical things. And I feel like it's another one of those kind of grounding exercises that we get to do. And then I always like to think of it as maybe it's not one specific place. I hate to be tied down to just one answer. So maybe it's a combination of special parts of multiple places, as well as maybe time frames. Because as we know, things change on a regular basis. So maybe it's a specific, beach back in when first visited, but you've seen it change. Or even same thing with like the magic of, I think of Bailey and her Disney experiences. Maybe it was this certain version of Disney, or a certain version of a theme park, or a certain version of yourself in that capacity. So, you can ground it in reality, but at the same time, you can bring in kind of fantastical pieces to build a fuller picture. And then I'm also going to challenge you a little bit to focus on the specific places and then what it means to you. So, as I said, enchantment can be that two-way road, but what I want you to do is turn it into a one-way road where it's the enchanting feelings to you, because I know you can experience a lot of these things with other people, and that type of thing. But let's turn it a little bit into the self kind of idea. And what are the things that spark the enchantment within you, that you can kind of do as you go? So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to play some music. Yes, Sherry, don't worry. I will go back to those slides. Let us know. And I would love to hear some of those places that hold magic for you. Embrace the full childhood nostalgia, or the spontaneity, or even just the nostalgia in general. Love it. So we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And I also, Anne mentioned the feeling of getting goosebumps when she kind of went to a special place as she was thinking about goosebumps. Also, fit. I feel like the heart racing, the breath caught in your throat, that kind of feeling. But what I loved reading all of these places is one, thank you so much for embracing it and giving yourself, whether you did it intentionally or unintentionally, the permission to kind of explore all these ideas, embrace some of the senses. But then what I love is the conversation where it's like, oh, this reminds me of that, or that triggered this idea. Because I feel like that's what's fun about enchantment is that so many things can lead to it. And I still think it's just the acknowledgement of some of those elegantly simplistic things that can bring all of these bigger emotions and the feelings and the connection there, and certainly embracing a little bit of the nostalgia. So thank you everybody for sharing. And again, if you maybe found this a little tricky or just it's a little early and you haven't, the coffee hasn't hit, or any of those feelings, what I do like about the mind map questions is it does give you an opportunity to come back to these. And I certainly think with that connection of places, we can now add a little bit of uh, connection to some of those body components. Because like I said, I was having a hard time with that because I was like, this is all about the mind and the heart, and maybe that's still what we want to focus on. But I do like to acknowledge it a little bit, all different parts, as you kind of go through the month, especially under these themes. So now we're going to move into the rosebud thorn exercise. So this is going to be on page 44 in your August journal. And this is what is so nice about the reflection is you can look back on the week that you had. I liked this quote of it being a roller coaster. So a roller coaster, not a racetrack. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down, but no high or low is forever. And I think that's just kind of a comforting idea is that, as much as I love all of the fantastic roses and all the highs and all those things, it can be a little exhausting. So it's always nice for the break. But then again, knowing that the lows are not going to always be as, as forever. So I think it's that lovely duality or just that gentle reminder that, this is a moment and it too shall pass. And whatever kind of quote, mantra, affirmation that's going to get you through it. But the rose is the opportunity to acknowledge the win, to highlight something that made you happy, something that made you smile. For me, like I said, I'm coming off a vacation. My sister, her husband, and my nephew came to visit for a week with my mother. My mother stayed an additional week, so she's actually been here for 2 weeks. And I took her to London for the first time. So this is she and I at Buckingham Palace. So she was really excited. And it's another one of those, I just think it's always fun to kind of, one, travel. I enjoy traveling, but I also enjoy traveling with my mother. So we had a great, lovely time, and always just great memories to have. The bud is something that is an emerging opportunity, something that you're looking forward to, something that is existing that you don't know if it's going to turn into a rose or not a thorn, and so you're trying to prepare. Like I said, I live in Edinburgh, and I'm right in the middle of the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which is a massive month-long art celebration. And I am definitely in like the heart of it, which one, super fun. And I love it. And the ability to go into all these things makes each day a little bit special, a little bit out of the ordinary. So I certainly enjoy August for that reason. But it very much ties directly into the thorn for me. And so I think this bud may turn into a little bit of a thorn. And the thorn is a challenge, something you have to overcome, something that you're working on, something that maybe didn't go so well, all of those things. So for me, it's coming off a vacation and having to go back to daily routines, having to work again, but also having to do all of those work things and school things during the festival. So everyone else is having fun. I mean, I can literally see them from my window. So I was like, oh, and I got to go to a daily routine. So that is absolutely going to be my thorn from this past week, as well as my thorn for this week. So as always, we would love to celebrate those roses with each and every one of you, get excited for the upcoming buds, and acknowledge the tribulations of those thorns. So I'm going to give you time to work on that. But again, we're on page 44 in your August journal, and we'll see you soon. Thank you everyone for sharing. That's the other reason I like this exercise is it definitely makes me feel a little less alone. So I appreciate acknowledging that there are some other folks struggling with getting back into a routine, either a routine of their own or their children or um, school age responsibilities, having to get back into those routines as well. But as always, this is certainly one of those, I think, really kind of magical moments of what makes the social so special is being able to kind of check in with everybody and just again see, feel a little less alone, but acknowledge some of those, again, the highs, the things that we get excited about, but also acknowledging some of those potentially tough next chapters around, loss of friends, families, mentors, health journeys, and again, some of those even kind of just day-to-day thorns that pop up. So I feel like, again, I always feel a little bit better being able to put it out into the universe, make it a little less of a carrying on my mind and soul and heart and all of those things. But as always, please continue to share in the chat all of your responses to the different prompts or whatever speaks to you. As we continue through, just have to be a little bit of aware time as we work through our setup pages. So we're going to shift into those weekly setup pages. So this is going to be on page 46 and 47 in your August journal. And this is how I like to start each of these pages because sometimes it can be a little tricky. I feel like I am a creature of habit, so I do a lot of the same thing, but also fully acknowledge that each week is going to be different. The week in August is going to look very different than the week in April versus the week in December. So sometimes I find it helpful to ask, what do I need this week? I am absolutely to the letter managing expectations. That's how I just exist. So I would rather have the conversation ahead of time. So I think it's also the acknowledgement of, to myself, what do I think I need? What do I need? What do I want? Just so I can help manage my expectations a little bit better. But that's where I would say, ask yourself, what do you need? Because sometimes what you need is the pages exactly as written in your journal. Sometimes you need is a complete revamp, a complete repurpose, a complete reshuffle. And sometimes what you need is a break. Sometimes you need a break from a particular section from different pages. And that is also part of the journey as well. I know it can always be a little bit hard to leave to leave a page blank, but sometimes that's actually what you need. And I think it helps a little bit with burnout and some of those things. I know Meha talks about burnout quite a bit. So sometimes I know it seems anti me suggesting this and kind of that facilitator capacity, but there are definitely times where I think I need a break from certain things. And it took me a while to give myself the grace to make that decision and run with it and be happy with it. So we are going to start at the top of the page because that's where I start. So that again goes into just because these are the examples that I show or the way that I describe it, there is no right or wrong way to do this. So the way I start at the top of the page with this week, I want to feel, this is my opportunity to take some of that intentional optimism and put out into the world. This is how I want to feel. This is my end goal. This is what is going to help me navigate the highs and lows of the week because I come back to that manifestation moment of how do I want to feel this time next week? And so it becomes that controlling moment that I feel a little bit better in existing in. And sometimes it's 1% better, 5% happier. I feel like, again, on vacation, I don't always reach for water. And so I definitely need to get back to now I would need to be like 10 to 15% more hydrated. So that's kind of where I always go. But maybe it's a word, a phrase, maybe it's your word of the year, maybe it's something in line with the theme. Maybe it's the vibe that this giraffe on a blanket reading, embracing the summer vibes, especially as we get to the kind of like high to late summer. Maybe it's less of something, more of something. Maybe it's a doodle. Maybe you're feeling your Disney princess era or your enchanting era, so the magic is there. Or maybe it's, I don't really know how to describe it, but I want to be, the feeling of this little otter in a flower crown, because that's the vibe I'm going for. So I am going to turn on a quick song, but I would love to hear in the chat, how you want to feel this time next week, or even how you want to feel this week, or how you think you want to feel. But you can also come to this section last and use it as a summary. This is how I think I'm going to feel. But would love to hear the feelings. And I'll see you soon. Okay, so now that we have how we want to feel, I like to then connect the different sections together to help support that end goal and that idea. So I'm going to combine the next sections with those weekly major three goals, as well as the weekly to-dos. And again, don't worry, I will come back to these slides once I go off camera. So if you don't quite get the screenshot or the picture that you want, don't worry, we will come back to it. But for me, the weekly major three goals help support the way I want to feel by being the mental and emotional reminders that I need to give myself to get through the week or to function or to help support how I want to feel. And a couple ways that our Sonder fam has found kind of success in those is maybe it is a category. As I referenced the mind, body, soul, I feel like that's how I think of how each of those pieces, the mind, the body, and the soul of the mind, body, and the heart, how those things can help support the overall theme. So breaking it is to those categories for those specific goals, I think can be really helpful. Or there are also times for me, it's here are the three main things that I need to do. And usually it's a task that I have been putting off or that I have been looming. So, taxes usually gets a big front and center as the number one. When I was having to renew my passport, some of those just like less fun things, but they're big and they're looming and they usually take quite a few steps. Maybe you want to lean a little bit into the theme or the magic, or even I find magic in alliterations. So maybe it's a creative, a capable, a carefree. Maybe it's just the three things that you're really getting satisfaction in doing with movies, shows, books, creative projects. Maybe it's embracing some of the seasonality. Maybe you're not quite ready to hand over your beach reads yet, or your kind of light summer reads as kind of the last moment before those routines. I really think same thing as we're talking routines. The person on the left, they have goals for their early routine, their midday routine, and their evening routine. So maybe it's focusing on everything that like instead of the weekly major three goals, maybe it's your three daily goals that you want to accomplish during certain times of the day. The one in the middle I really like because I think it's appropriate. They had one big goal, and I think this was Quinn's. She's one of our regular socialers, and that's make a plan to go back to school. So this was the big plan. And so all of her to-dos and her habits and activities, her meal plan and her mind body health plan all supported this one goal. So again, it doesn't have to be three. Maybe it's one, maybe it's two, maybe it's a bigger focal point. Maybe it is a bingo board, and maybe you have a direct connection between those major goals and the to-dos that support those. So the bottom left, yeah. If you haven't been to a social before, I call it a Silk and Sonder Tridecan, and that's because it is embracing those weekly goals in the three different categories, as well as the bingo board, which is a staple for Silk and Sonder family in the form of the to-dos, and those work together under the overarching theme of embracing. So if you need to kind of knit all of those things together to help support the way you want to feel, then do it. It goes back to what do you need? And same thing, maybe you just need some good old-fashioned affirmations. Maybe you need the quotes for the motivation. Again, those internal, maybe mind reminders or the heart, the health, the heart reminders, ways to embrace some of those glimmers on the daily basis, or again, those alliterations. And then you've got the weekly to-dos. And so these can absolutely be a traditional to-do list. I am a to-dog early, so I like to celebrate my to-dos. They live in my head, and when I get them done, that's when they get written down. But I also jump between, because sometimes what I need is the Eisenhower matrix, and that's the do, decide, delegate, or delete. I do live alone, so delegation becomes a little bit tricky, but I've become a little bit more in tune with celebrating the delegation. And that's everything from maintenance things that I can normally do. I have maids that come once a month. So that's been a great relief when it comes to delegating. And same thing with some of what I consider my traditional like meal planning or like cooking hacks. That's actually a delegation. I think of like the salad kits. Like, yes, I can absolutely painstakingly make my own salad. But the salad kits are a great delegation because I don't have to chop up my own lettuce. I don't have to cook or chop my own chicken. I don't have to bake croutons from scratch. I don't have to make my own dressing. So that absolutely becomes a delegation. And at the same time, I never delete anything. I just delay it. But another way to embrace that is the Pomodoro technique, where you pick a task, set a timer, work through those, and then take a break. And I think that's certainly helpful for me this upcoming week, especially as I jump back into the routines. Another way to approach your to-do list is the needs and the wants. So breaking up those into those different categories. Same thing with maybe you have work to-dos and personal to-dos, breaking those into the needs and the wants. But maybe you just want to focus on the weekly wins. Maybe it's that, again, what's getting your heart racing, or giving you goosebumps, or getting your throat, your breath caught in your throat. Maybe that's where you want to track some of these, or even embracing the not to do and the stickers. So I am going to give you time to work on this. I would love to see or hear in the chat, here in the chat. Do you connect these two sections? Are you a to-do person? Are you an Eisenhower matrix? And I'm always looking for good inspiration to not keep carrying things over week to week. And I know it is the eat the frog concept, but I like frogs, so that doesn't resonate with me as much. So I'm always looking for help. So I'm going to give you time to work on this, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And like I said earlier, please continue to share even as we go all of your amazing tips and tricks and inspiration, especially I feel like also putting it into the chat helps build that kind of accountability component. I'm a big fan of so it is written, so it shall be, and kind of that manifestation element. So adding that extra element of not only the power of pen to paper in your journal, but then sharing it with, again, your Silicon Sonder fam accountability buddies, I think is always helpful. But at the same time, I get those aha moments of like, oh, yes, I need to do that too. So thank you for sharing. And so we are still going to be on the page 46 in your August journal. And we're going to move to that bottom section, which is the habits and activity tracker, or the habities, as Maya coined. And the way I approach these is we have our monthly habit and activity tracker. So those are the things that I want to do every single day. I am a creature of habit, so it's the same three. I might as well just kind of start printing them in my journal when it arrives, because every day I want to move, I want to journal, and I want to read. And the way it differs in my weekly setup is I then add the lens of reality to it. And so it's those are the three things that I want to do. I then acknowledge how much time or energy or effort that I can commit to those three things. So like I said, coming off of vacation, I wore everybody out. So I just need to, on the move category, I definitely need to keep going, but I definitely need to do some rest and refresh things. So I'll probably kind of shift some of my workouts to more of the, active stretching kind of in that capacity as opposed to some of the cardio, even though it kind of goes against my theme of getting like your heart racing. So we'll see where I go with that. And same thing with reading. I'm rereading a series that I've always loved, and it's bringing back all that like nostalgia and those feelings. So I'm definitely accounting for that, and then journaling, getting back into the habit. But other ways that you can approach that is maybe you want to set a goal, maybe you don't want to set a goal. Maybe these again are more of your mental and emotional reminders to kind of get you through the week. Maybe it's habits and activities that you want to stop. Maybe you too are needing a break from the habits and activities as you're kind of trying to refocus your routine, or refocusing your family and friends, get back to their routines. And so you can always put a motivation sticker there and not necessarily work on those. You're like, I just need to work on my monthly habit and activity tracker instead of these. Maybe your habits and activities are going to look a little bit different as you transition into, I know we have quite a few educators. Maybe now your weekly habits and activities are going to look different than your weekend habits and activities. So being able to delineate between those and love it. Remembering to take a lunch break at work. That is the best advice I got from my dad. When I took on my very first job was everyone gets a lunch break. So it's one of those, it's you're entitled to it, you do it, all those things. So definitely take that time. I have had to focus a little bit more on not doing it at my desk. So I have been pleased with that, but it's also just the acknowledgement, especially getting back into those routines. And just because there are five things listed does not mean you need to do all five. Maybe it's two, maybe it's three. Maybe you are recovering some things, so it's just, stay hydrated, get better, help someone recover. Maybe that becomes the priorities. And then I always love the 5 days to schedule every month. I have really started embracing these. For me, with this particular theme of enchantment, that screams reset, refresh. Because, like I said, we've been doing a lot of kind of the hard emotional work, as Bailey calls it, feeling the crunchy feelings. And so I think this is again a lighter, fluffier theme. So embracing some of that reset, refresh. So I'm definitely giving myself a mental break kind of from some of those, but still embracing it. Same thing with a fun day. I've almost had too many fun days. So I need to go back to the learning days and the reset days. And then if you have come to my socials before, you know I'm a sucker for pretty pictures and iconography. So here are, and I've repurposed my sleep tracker, and sometimes my expense tracker as my adventure list or my bucket list for the month, because I don't use them there. So here are those amazing bucket lists. This is a slow summer adventure list. And what I also like to do is just acknowledge the things that I'm kind of already doing that makes them special. You know, making a milkshake or watching a butterfly. How many times do you catch yourself doing that and being able to call it what it is? And I feel like that just makes it a little bit more magical, a little bit special because you're almost putting it in its own special, you're giving it a spotlight. And same thing with that reset. So going back to routines, the refreshing. I thought this August Back to You challenge was really interesting. I know we're more than halfway through August, but you can incorporate some of these. But what I also loved was the creative challenge of turning these into something a little bit different. So, for example, on the 24th, a childhood comfort meal. For me, it's mac and cheese, but it's like the Velveeta mac and cheese, and I don't have access to that here. So I find it as a fun challenge of how can I maybe adultify my childhood comfort meal. Some of those things. Same thing with the unfollowing the counts, like including some of these during the day, but you can add that kind of magical twist to it. So I think it's something fun. Same thing with Wear Something That Fills You. I'm headed to a show after this, so it's more of the like pulling in the different fun things. And I'm like, I have this great outfit. Now I need to do more with it. So I love this challenge. I've been really lucky. At Ambitiously Alexa does each of these monthly. And so I've started to incorporating it a little bit more in my socials, but I highly recommend looking those out because I think it's a great, again, kind of bucket list bingo board, if you will, idea. And same thing with these. I just think these are pretty. And again, it's the stargazing, time in nature, because I know a lot of us, when we talk about the magical place, nature was quite there. Have you embraced floral cookies? Have you made tea? I feel like that was a very summer thing. Originally from Oklahoma, my dad would always make, iced tea, which I feel like was a Southern thing, but not necessarily sweet tea, but it would always just be in a very specific pitcher in a very specific part of our refrigerator, and it would be there. And like it was only done in the summer. Love to hear what you all are working in, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And whew, as I said, I'm definitely a little out of practice. As I've looked at the time and had a panic. So we are going to move to page 47 in your journal. To me, this is the B side. So I usually don't use this page very much, but there are some definite gems here. So I'm going to go through this whole section and we'll get through. But again, apologies on the time crunch. But the meal plan, you can use it absolutely as a meal plan as written. I like to repurpose this one because because you can do it in real time, or you can do it as, again, that planning tool. For me, I've used it as a wardrobe packer or a travel packer, just so it helps me not pack excessive things. Use it for that, but maybe this is where your affirmations live. Maybe this is where your kind of enchanted meal plan's going to be. So it's more on the prompts, the daily rituals, some of those. Maybe it's again a creative component, but I've also seen the mind body health plan go hand in hand with some of those things. You can either do it as a planning tool or something that you track in real time. So maybe this is where your I feel and I need question that you ask yourself for a really nice, effective mental check-in on a daily basis. Maybe this is where your highlights are. Maybe this is where you want to track those magical moments that kind of, again, take your breath away. Maybe a bucket list is here, reading logs, kind of those different plans. This slide I kind of found that I feel like it was Bailey because I feel like Bailey's the resident Disney princess, where I consider myself like the Disney lady in waiting or the Disney Duchess. So this one is a really lovely reminder of embracing enchantment, but also great love yourself ideas. Um, and then you have the shopping list, which can go hand in hand again with that meal plan and those ideas there. It's where the bingo board can live. Maybe this is the things that you want to buy, not buy, things that you want to acknowledge, what you want to be, the ideas for the mini bingo or mini breaks, kind of getting back into the routine, and definitely the glimmer bingo ideas. So I'm going to go back through these slides quickly, play one more brief song, and then we'll do the closing. Thank you. I appreciate all of you hanging with me. And like I said, I'll get back to my social routine a little bit better. But then that very last section on page 47 is the I am loving. And I think this is just a fun way to embrace and acknowledge some of those glimmers, the small magical moments of what you were just loving, what's making you happy, what is making you smile. I think that's a great place to put it. And then, as always, we reach the end and then some. So thank you all for for joining us. We love to continue the conversation in the Silk and Sonder app. You guys provide such amazing inspiration as well as wonderful ideas. So if you want to share your planners there, we'd love to see it. We love to share them. And we love to, like I said, get the inspiration from each and every one of you. And then, as always, here is a copy of my playlist. I save all of my playlists on Spotify, so you can definitely see those. I will say the first song definitely comes out of the gate with a somewhat offensive word. So just keep that in mind. But as always, I will provide that link in the chat. And again, I am excited to be back in the swing of things. I can't believe August is almost over, but I am certainly going to spend some time acknowledging kind of the enchantment when it comes to those magical responses. So things that take my breath away, things that make my heart beat a little bit faster, things that give me goosebumps. So I would love to share each of that with you guys this week. You guys are going to have an amazing week. I hope you have a wonderful week, a wonderful rest of your day. I hope to see you at another event soon, but we will see you again. Bye.
Wide-eyed under the starlight, come take my hand and let's run. Hold on tight to the moment, our story's just begun.